It's getting harder every week to find new pickup trucks. Then why are thousands of them being parked in giant lots instead of being shipped off to dealers?
Some trucks used to be worth real money. Now, they've collapsed so hard that owners can't even give them away. Engines that fail without warning, transmissions that explode at the worst possible time, frames that rot from the inside, and repair bills that cost more than the truck itself. Today, we're going straight into the 8 trucks that have crashed in value so badly. They're now worth almost nothing. 1. Ford F-150, certain years. The Ford F-150 is America's best-selling truck, but a few specific model years have crashed so hard in value that owners can barely trade them in. These aren't the legendary bulletproof years. These are the troubled ones where Ford tried new technology too quickly, cut corners in crucial areas, or created engines that simply weren't ready for the real world. And once the problems became public, resale values fell like a rock. The biggest trouble came from certain 2011 to 2014 F-150s with the 3.5-liter EcoBoost. On paper, the EcoBoost was supposed to be the future, powerful, fuel-efficient, and high-tech. But once people began driving them long-term, real-world issues started stacking up. Moisture buildup in the intercooler caused sudden power loss during acceleration, sometimes while towing or overtaking. Misfires, carbon buildup on the valves, and turbo failures became common enough that used buyers started avoiding these trucks entirely. Then there were the 2015 to 2017 models, which introduced the aluminum body. It was innovative, lighter, stronger, and expensive to repair. A simple dent or fender bender suddenly required specialized tools and higher labor costs, making insurance rates jump. Buyers quickly realized the value equation didn't look so great anymore. Many dealers even admitted privately that aluminum repair bills scared off used truck shoppers. That alone dragged resale pricing down. But the biggest resale killer was the 6-speed transmission issues in several of these model years. Harsh shifting, sudden gear hunting, slipping between shifts, and even complete failures turned what should have been dependable daily trucks into money pits. Owners complained that the transmission felt confused, jerking at low speeds, slamming into gear, or refusing to downshift on hills. The moment these complaints hit forums, used prices sank. Even the V8 options didn't escape. The 5.0 Coyote V8 in certain years suffered from excessive oil consumption and timing chain wear. Some engines needed full rebuilds long before 150,000 miles. No used buyer wants the risk of a $5,000 to $7,000 repair hidden behind a cheap price tag. Combine all that: EcoBoost problems, transmission failures, aluminum repair costs, and inconsistent quality, and you get a truck that once held value beautifully, but suddenly became one of the easiest trucks to buy for cheap on the used market. Dealers lowball them, private buyers avoid them, and owners often get stuck driving them because selling makes no financial sense. Ford will always be Ford. Strong brand, great trucks, iconic moments. But these specific F-150 years, their values fell so fast that they earned a place on this list of trucks worth almost nothing now. 2. Ram 1500 EcoDiesel. The Ram 1500 EcoDiesel entered the market with huge promise. It was supposed to be the perfect blend of power and fuel savings. A light-duty truck that could tow like a half-ton but sip fuel like a compact car. At launch, people were excited. The idea of a quiet, smooth, efficient diesel pickup sounded almost too good to be true. And unfortunately, it was too good to be true. Within a few years, the EcoDiesel's reputation collapsed, and so did its resale value. One of the biggest reasons the EcoDiesel is worth practically nothing today is the long list of engine failures and reliability disasters. Owners reported issues ranging from oil cooler leaks to EGR failures, clogged intake manifolds, and blown turbos. But the most devastating problem was the bearings and crankshaft failures. Some engines failed as early as 60,000 to 80,000 miles, with little warning. Once that became common knowledge, used buyers ran the other way. Then came the class action lawsuits and EPA investigations related to emission systems. The EcoDiesel got caught up in allegations that its emission software didn't perform as advertised. After that, the truck's reputation tanked. Overnight, it transformed from an exciting new diesel option into a liability. Many owners received recalls and software updates that, while required, often made the trucks feel slower, louder, and less fuel efficient than before. And the repair costs made everything worse. Diesel trucks are already expensive to maintain, but the EcoDiesel pushed things to another level. A simple emissions-related repair could cost thousands. Replacing a turbo or fixing internal engine damage could approach $7,000 to $10,000. Some mechanics wouldn't even take EcoDiesels in anymore because the engines were too unpredictable. That kind of reputation kills resale instantly. Even people who enjoyed driving the EcoDiesel started noticing that dealers were offering shockingly low trade-in values. Many dealerships admitted that they simply didn't want to carry them on the lot. They'd sit too long, scare buyers away, or require expensive repairs before resale. As a result, the EcoDiesel market collapsed faster than almost any truck in recent memory. You can find some of these trucks today for prices that seem unbelievably cheap for a modern half-ton. But there's a reason for that. Most buyers know that even if they get one for bargain pricing, they might end up spending the same amount, or more, on repairs within a year. The saddest part? When everything was working perfectly, the EcoDiesel was actually a great truck. Quiet, smooth, and very efficient. But reliability nightmares, massive repair bills, lawsuits, and emissions scandals destroyed its long-term value. That's why the Ram 1500 EcoDiesel now sits firmly on the list of trucks that are worth almost nothing. 3. Nissan Titan XD Diesel. When Nissan launched the Titan XD with a Cummins diesel engine, it looked like a brilliant idea. A truck positioned right between a half-ton and a heavy-duty, stronger than a regular F-150, but not as big and bulky as a Ram 2500. Buyers were excited, reviewers were curious, and Nissan confidently advertised it as a new class of truck. But once real-world ownership data started rolling in, the entire experiment fell apart. Today, the Titan XD diesel is one of the cheapest trucks on the used market, often selling for shockingly low prices. The biggest problem is that the Titan XD never truly found an audience. It wasn't strong enough to compete with real heavy duties, and it wasn't efficient or comfortable enough to compete with half-tons. Buyers couldn't figure out where it fit. And when a truck doesn't fit into a clear category, resale value collapses. Dealerships quickly learned that Titan XDs just sat on the lot far longer than similar trucks from the Big Three. Then came the Cummins 5.0-liter diesel issues. While Cummins as a brand has a legendary reputation, this particular engine wasn't their finest moment. owners reported EGR cooler failures, turbocharger problems, fuel system issues, injector failures, and sensors that went bad far too early. Repair costs weren't cheap either. Diesels always cost more to fix, and this one's parts weren't as widely available as Ford or Ram diesel parts. Transmission problems added fuel to the fire. Many Titan XDs used the ACEN 6-speed, and while ACEN is known for strong transmissions, this particular setup felt sluggish, confused, and prone to shuddering. Some trucks suffered from hard shifts or delayed engagement when cold. Used truck buyers heard about these issues and stayed away, which pushed resale values even lower. But the biggest resale killer was the discontinuation of the diesel option. When Nissan announced that they were canceling the Cummins-powered Titan XD, the market immediately reacted. Resale value plummeted. Trucks that were once priced like premium models started appearing at auctions for half of what they originally cost. Sellers were stunned by how little dealerships were willing to pay. Even worse, Nissan's truck lineup had limited aftermarket support compared to Ford, Chevy, or Ram. You couldn't easily get performance parts, affordable repairs, or strong aftermarket upgrades. For truck buyers, that's a deal breaker. Nobody wants a diesel truck that doesn't have parts availability and doesn't have a community behind it. Today, Titan XD diesels are surprisingly cheap on the used market, often thousands less than a similarly aged F-150 or Silverado. But that low price comes with a warning: limited demand, questionable long-term reliability, higher repair costs, and poor resale make it one of the least valuable trucks money can buy. The concept was bold, the execution was flawed, and the market never forgave it. That's why the Titan XD diesel now sits firmly among trucks that are worth almost nothing. 4. Chevy Colorado 2.8 Duramax. The Chevy Colorado 2.8 Duramax looked like the perfect truck on paper. A small, efficient diesel engine in a mid-size pickup sounded like a brilliant idea. Great fuel economy, strong towing numbers, and the reliability that many people associate with diesel power. But once these trucks hit real roads and real ownership, the 2.8 Duramax quickly developed a reputation that crushed its value on the used market. Today, many of them are priced shockingly low, and there's a long list of reasons why. The biggest issue is the emissions system, which became a nightmare for owners. Modern diesels rely on complex emissions components like DEF systems, DPF filters, EGR coolers, and sensors everywhere. But in the Colorado, these components failed far too often. Owners reported clogged DPF filters, malfunctioning DEF heaters, EGR valve failures, and endless sensor faults that kept lighting up the dash with warnings. These systems are expensive to fix, and the truck simply wasn't designed for the long, hot highway runs that diesel emissions systems prefer. Then there were the fuel injector problems. Injectors on the 2.8 Duramax were notorious for failing early, causing rough idling, excessive smoke, hard starts, and poor fuel economy. Replacing injectors on a diesel is never cheap, and once owners realized that failures could happen under 100,000 miles, resale values started to plummet. The turbocharger wasn't without issues either. Some trucks suffered from turbo lag, weak boost, or complete turbo failure, and because the truck wasn't a mass-market diesel like a Duramax 2500 HD or a Power Stroke, parts availability was limited, and repairs often cost more than people expected for a mid-sized truck. Another big problem was the transmission. Many 2.8 Duramax models came with the 6-speed automatic that felt slow, clunky, and hesitant. Some owners reported early failures, torque converter problems, shuddering at low speeds, and rough downshifts on hills. When the 8-speed replaced it on later models, it brought its own issues, mainly torque converter shudder and fluid breakdown that forced GM to release multiple service bulletins. But the real resale killer was the lack of long-term demand for diesel mid-size trucks. Most truck buyers either want a big diesel or a simple gas engine. The diesel Colorado sat awkwardly in the middle, too slow to feel powerful, too complex to maintain cheaply, and too expensive to repair when something went wrong. Once used, buyers saw the repair estimates. They stopped shopping for these trucks altogether. As a result, prices collapsed. You can now find diesel Colorados selling well below their gas counterparts, even though they originally cost thousands more. No dealership wants to stock them, no mechanic loves working on them, and many owners report that they've lost thousands in depreciation. The 2.8 Duramax could have been a winner. Instead, it became one of the most disappointing diesel trucks on the market. That combination of fragile emission systems, expensive repairs, limited demand, and poor long-term reliability pushed the Colorado 2.8 to the bottom of the resale ladder, making it one of the trucks worth almost nothing today. 5. Ford Ranger, early 2000s and 2019 relaunch years. The Ford Ranger has a legendary name, but not every generation lived up to it. Some Ranger years aged beautifully, becoming favorites among mechanics and owners. But the early 2000s models and the 2019 relaunch years suffered problems that destroyed their long-term value. Today, these specific Rangers are some of the cheapest used trucks you can find, and there's a long list of reasons why their resale value has collapsed. The early 2000s Rangers were hit hardest by frame rust issues, especially in northern states. Frames and cross members rotted far faster than they should have. Some trucks failed inspection long before they reached 150,000 miles. Once word spread that a Ranger might look fine on the outside but be crumbling underneath, used buyers became extremely cautious. Nobody wants a truck with a frame that could fail during towing or highway driving. These years also suffered from weak automatic transmissions. Many owners complained of slipping, delayed shifts, harsh engagement, and early failure. Transmission rebuilds often cost more than the truck was worth, especially as the truck aged. Once a vehicle hits a certain age, where repairs cost more than resale value, the market collapses. And that's exactly what happened to these Rangers. The engines weren't trouble-free either. The 3.0-liter Vulcan V6 was known for being slow and underpowered, which hurt its desirability. Meanwhile, the 4.0-liter SOHC V6 suffered from timing chain guide failures, a repair so labor-intensive that many owners simply gave up. A truck with a failing timing chain has almost no resale value, and these older Rangers quickly reached that point. Then came the 2019 relaunch, a highly anticipated return that stumbled right out of the gate. Ford brought the Ranger back, hoping to reclaim the mid-size segment, but the new version didn't impress buyers the way Ford expected. The biggest issue was the 2.3-liter EcoBoost engine, which had turbo lag, carbon buildup problems, and complaints about long-term reliability. And the 10-speed automatic transmission created plenty of headaches: hesitation, clunky shifting, gear hunting, and early failures in some trucks. Many early-build 2019 Rangers had software glitches, from throttle response issues to transmission calibration problems. Owners reported electrical gremlins, backup camera failures, sensor problems, and malfunctioning driver assist features. All of these concerns tanked customer confidence, and when confidence drops, used pricing follows. The real resale killer? The Ranger simply couldn't compete with the Toyota Tacoma or Chevy Colorado in long-term dependability. Used buyers overwhelmingly choose those other brands, leaving the Ranger sitting on dealer lots longer and longer. Any truck that sits becomes a truck that gets discounted. And discounts eventually turn into a reputation for being a cheap truck that nobody wants. So between the rusty frames of the early 2000s and the reliability concerns of the 2019 relaunch, the Ranger's value dropped hard. Some years of this once great truck are now among the least valuable trucks in the used market today, earning them a clear spot on this list of trucks that are worth almost nothing now. 6. GMC Canyon V6. The GMC Canyon V6 was supposed to be the premium mid-size truck, the more refined, more comfortable, more upscale version of the Chevy Colorado. And for a while, it looked like it could compete. It had a smooth V6 engine, a comfortable interior, modern styling, and strong towing numbers for its class. But as the years went by, the Canyon's resale value collapsed. Today, many V6 Canyons are selling for surprisingly cheap prices, and there are several reasons why buyers and dealers now avoid them. The biggest problem is the 8-speed automatic transmission. GM's 8L45 and 8L90 transmissions became infamous for torquey converter shudder, hesitation, and harsh shifting. Owners describe the truck as jerking forward at stoplights, vibrating at highway speeds, or lurching during low-speed acceleration. GM released multiple service bulletins, fluid updates, and software patches, but none fully fixed the issue. Once a truck gets a reputation for having a bad transmission, its resale value collapses instantly. The V6 engine itself, while generally reliable, had its own quirks. Some owners experienced timing chain stretch, excessive oil consumption, and rough idling, especially as the engines approached higher mileage. The combination of engine quirks and transmission problems made used buyers cautious. Many didn't want to risk a $4,000 to $6,000 repair on a truck that wasn't considered best in class. Electrical issues also became a major headache. Canyon owners reported problems with infotainment freezing, Bluetooth malfunctioning, backup cameras failing, sensors glitching, and intermittent warning lights. While these issues weren't always catastrophic, they chipped away at the truck's reputation. In a competitive segment, even small reliability concerns can destroy resale value. Then there's the interior build quality. While GMC marketed the Canyon as a premium mid-size truck, the interior materials didn't match the price tag. Hard plastics, rattles in the dash, and seats that wore out faster than expected left buyers disappointed. When word spread that the Canyon didn't feel as upscale as promised, demand dropped. Another huge factor was competition. Trucks like the Toyota Tacoma and Honda Ridgeline built reputations for bulletproof reliability. The Canyon, on the other hand, built a reputation for inconsistent reliability. Used buyers overwhelmingly chose the Tacoma, pushing Canyon resale values lower and lower. Even the Chevy Colorado outsold it consistently, meaning the Canyon became a niche truck with shrinking demand. The final blow? The 8-speed transmission issues became so widely known that dealers started offering extremely low trade-in values. Some dealerships openly admitted that they didn't want to take certain years of Canyon V6 models because they didn't want the liability or the customer complaints. Today, many V6 Canyon trucks, especially the mid-2010s models, have fallen so far in value that they often sell for far less than competitors with similar mileage. The combination of transmission failures, electrical glitches, interior wear, and shrinking market demand pushed the Canyon to the bottom of the used truck market. It's a truck that had potential, but long-term problems erased most of its value. And that's why the GMC Canyon V6 now sits firmly on the list of trucks that are worth almost nothing today. 7. Toyota Tundra 5.7 Rust Belt Years. The Toyota Tundra 5.7 is one of the most reliable trucks ever built. The engine is nearly bulletproof. The transmission can last a lifetime, and many Tundras easily cross 300,000 miles. But there's a major exception: the Rust Belt years. These specific Tundras suffered from severe frame rust, corrosion, and structural failures so serious that resale value in certain states collapsed completely. A truck that should have held its value incredibly well became nearly worthless if it lived in the wrong climate. The biggest problem was the frame rust recalls. The frames on many 2000s and early 2000s Tundras were supplied by Dana, and they didn't hold up well in snowy, salted environments. Owners across the Northeast and Midwest began discovering that their frames were flaking, bubbling, or literally rotting through. Some frames had holes large enough to fit a hand through. Control arms, cross members, and suspension mounts rusted to the point of failure. In extreme cases, trucks were considered unsafe to drive. Toyota eventually launched massive frame replacement programs and buybacks, but even that couldn't fully repair the Tundra's reputation in rust-heavy states. Buyers became extremely cautious. No one wants to invest in a truck that might have a structurally compromised frame, even if the engine is flawless. Once rust gets into the body or frame, the truck loses thousands in value instantly. The recall process created another problem: inconsistent repairs. Some Tundras received full frame replacements, which were expensive and time-consuming. Others received rust-proofing that didn't always stop further corrosion. And many trucks slipped through the cracks entirely, leaving owners with vehicles that looked clean on the outside but were rotting underneath. When used buyers realized they had no reliable way to judge the condition of a Tundra's frame without an invasive inspection, demand dropped sharply. Then there was the bed rust and tailgate corrosion, which became common in northern states. Even trucks that had frame replacements often continued to rust in other areas: rockers, cab corners, wheel wells, and underbody mounts. People who purchased these trucks used often found themselves battling rust far earlier than expected. The real resale killer wasn't the engine, the transmission, or even the truck's overall reliability. It was the fear factor. The Toyota brand usually commands premium resale value because people trust it. But in the Rust Belt, the Tundra lost that trust. Dealerships in states like New York, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio began offering shockingly low trade-in values for older Tundras because they didn't want the liability. Once the market sees that a truck is being heavily discounted, that discount becomes permanent. The result? A truck that should be worth top dollar in the used market has versions that are practically worthless if they spent years in snowy, salted climates. Many owners found themselves stuck with a once great truck that couldn't pass inspection, had no trade-in value, and required repairs so expensive that selling for scrap became the only option. The Toyota Tundra is a legend, but these specific rust-prone years cemented its place on this list of trucks that are worth almost nothing now. 8. Chevy Silverado 1500 AFM engine years. The Chevy Silverado 1500 has been a strong seller for decades, but certain model years equipped with AFM, active fuel management, destroyed their own resale value. AFM was supposed to boost fuel economy by shutting off 4 cylinders during light driving. Instead, it became one of the most notorious engine systems GM ever released. And the trucks equipped with it, especially from the late 2000s through the mid-2000s, have seen their value crash to some of the lowest levels in the full-size market. The biggest problem is the lifters. AFM relies on special collapsible lifters to deactivate the cylinders. But these lifters fail far too often, sometimes as early as 60,000 to 90,000 miles. When they fail, the engine starts misfiring, ticking loudly, and losing power. In many cases, the truck won't even run properly. The repair? Often a full teardown of the top end, costing anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, or more if additional damage occurs. And if the failure isn't caught early, it can destroy the camshaft, turning a repair into a $5,000 to $7,000 job. Used buyers know this, and many refuse to touch AFM engines. That alone crushed resale. Then there's the oil consumption problem. AFM-equipped Silverados frequently burn oil at alarming rates. Some engines require an extra quart every 1,000 to 2,000 miles. Owners often didn't notice until the engine ran low, which led to bearing damage, piston scoring, and outright engine failure. Once a truck becomes known for needing constant oil checks, the used market ignores it. The transmissions from these years didn't help either. The 6-speed automatics were known for harsh shifts, torque converter shudder, and premature wear. Some trucks had transmission failures under 100,000 miles. Combined with AFM engine issues, these trucks were a financial liability. The electronics and interior components also aged poorly. Failed instrument clusters, glitchy infotainment, failing blend door actuators, and broken column shifters became common complaints. While none of these issues were individually catastrophic, together they painted a picture of trucks that were expensive to maintain, irritating to live with, and unreliable long-term. And then there's the market factor. The Silverado's strongest competitors, Ford's V8s and Toyota's 5.7, developed reputations for better long-term reliability. Used buyers gravitated toward those trucks. When a truck loses the confidence of the market, its value collapses fast. Dealerships also contribute to the low resale. Many openly admit they don't want AFM-year Silverados on their lot. They either sit too long or require too much reconditioning. Low demand equals low trade-in value. It's simple economics. That's why you can now find certain AFM-year Silverados selling for surprisingly low prices, sometimes thousands less than similar F-150s or Tundras. They're cheap for a reason: high risk, expensive repairs, and a well-known track record of problems. The Silverado 1500 should have been a reliable, long-lasting workhorse. Instead, the AFM years became some of the most heavily depreciated trucks in the used market. and that's why they firmly belong on this list of trucks that are worth almost nothing today. Some trucks age like fine wine, holding their value year after year, no matter how many miles they rack up. But the ones on this list took a very different path. They started strong, sold well, and looked great on the showroom floor. Yet time, real-world use, and major engineering mistakes exposed their weaknesses. Engines that couldn't survive long-term, transmissions that failed too often, frames that rusted out, and technology that sounded good on paper but fell apart in reality. What's left behind are trucks that simply aren't worth much anymore. Not because they were always bad, but because their problems became too costly, too common, or too well-known among used buyers. Dealers avoid them, mechanics warn people away, and resale values collapse. Whether it's a diesel experiment that didn't work out, a new engine technology that caused more trouble than it solved, or a truck that rusted faster than it aged, each of these models lost their place in the market. If you own one of these trucks, you probably know the struggle: low trade-in offers, expensive repairs, and a truck that's hard to sell. And if you're shopping for a used truck, these are the ones that might look cheap, but come with risks you'll want to understand before buying. Sometimes a bargain is a bargain. Other times, it's cheap for a reason. And those reasons are exactly why these 8 trucks, once respected and popular, are now worth almost nothing.